Yeah. So, welcome. Letzte Woche haben wir uns mal gewöhnt, da Ölm zu fuhren Kamera an. Das ist der Fall keiner nicht gefahren, hat sich gesagt aus. Aber also ist es der Cider. Und ein bisschen gejumpt auf 6 Steps. Ich glaube allemal, dass jeder eine versteht alle Steps inzwischen, aber nicht allemal ist richtig. So, ich will nicht, ich kann nicht explainen oder aufbauen alle Steps von der Ikre-Sache, was der Ölm hat nicht verstanden. Which is about knowledge. Ich kann das nicht Hand. Dann können wir das sehen. Aber ich kann nicht Hand. Aber ich habe getracht, sie geben 2 Nikiddes nur wegen dem. Ein bisschen nicht sie Maß besahen, but mehr öfter sie geben instructions. Or maybe so we could at least know what we're talking about when sie reden wegen Ecstasy. Ekstase. Also was man rief in chassidisches Forum, es passt das Agashmias, Aliyas Neshomer, things like that. Yes. Und was ich auch getan habe, das als Verstehen, ist das so eine Sache, aber der Ölm hat gemeint, dass ich recht stisse. Nicht, dass ich recht stisse, aber ich suche Sachen, ich weiß nicht, man knackt Sachen und suchen alle Steps in der Mitte, so man hat eine leckere Geleiter. Und auch dann will ich lernen ein bisschen Rambam, lecker. Das ist noch ein bisschen. So, was ich gewollt describen, ich weiß nicht, ob ich es kann describen, aber ich meine, es ist eine sehr basic experience. Darf können es tryen, ich meine, es ist gering ist zu tryen relatively. Es ist schwer zu reden wegen Sachen, was eine sehr happen inside of a person in a certain sense. Ich kann mich wohl sagen, dass happen nicht inside, das macht sich geringer zu reden wegen. Nur Menschen, was tun gewisse Sachen, was eine gewähnt hat, es gering zu identifieren. Mit Stumm rede ich wegen dem, meine ich das. Aber ich meine, dass ich kann describe auf Öfen, was at least shows you that there's something like that going on. So, ich habe zwei Digmus, zwei States, 2 Examples. Wie soll ich mein, ich rede wegen? Das erste ist von nehmen Trips, fuhren auf den Berg. Und der zweite ist von Lernen. Trips. Nicht der Trip. Auch nicht. Aber können von einer Sache. So, ich weiß nicht, du hast auch meine Erscheinung, was du mir drauf Menschen haben, was schon geschehen zu sein, aber es ist schwer zu wissen sicher. So, du hast Menschen reden wegen gegangen auf so beautiful Platz, kickt auf den hohen Berg, and so mal vielleicht eine Language, mal raus von des Palace. Ja? Geht einmal sein, sagt das so.
Ausdruck.
Es ist ein Ausdruck. Aber es sind Menschen, ob die Geist in einer gewissen Platz, oder ob die kickst auf ein Psa. Ich weiß nicht, beautiful Sachen. Du andere, beauty is nur ein Weg, aber beauty is an easy way to talk about. If you look at something very beautiful or very interesting, you'll notice that if you do it calmly and for like more than 5 seconds, you'll notice that at some point there's a field, also wie the beauty von der große Berg, ist nicht etwas, was du weißt wegen, was du gehört wegen. Nicht, dass ich kiek auf einen größeren Berg oder auf eine scheine Scenery, auf ein scheine Wasser, scheine Berg. There seems to be a switch, and that's what we call, it's wegen appreciation von art. Ja, jeder geht von der Sache, appreciate the Scheinkeit, appreciate this. This moment of appreciation, or moment of being impressed by something, if you look at it, and if you'll do it, you'll realize that it's a moment of, in some way, and this do Sach Menschen, andere traditions, andere Menschen, some different ways of talking about this and calling this names. But before calling it names, we should know what we're talking about. It seems like that thing that you're looking at, that you became that. Or that it became you. Und ich bin geweiss noch, was ich rede. So, ich kann nicht gierig so mehr teures wegen dem. So,
it became me.
Listen.
Was that mean?
Was meint, ist auch philosophische Schale. Ich habe mich geredet wegen the experience. How it feels, or how it seems.
But how can I experience as Jens wird mir?
Ich kann dir jetzt sagen, wie soll es experiencen. Geh zu deinem Fenster morgen in der Früh. If you don't have a window, find one. Go pay $35 for the One World Trade Center Observatory, or $28 for the Empire State Building, or $26 for the Rockefeller Center, whatever. And stell dich auf dort ein Fatog, wenn der Sinn kommt darauf. And just stare at it for 25 minutes. That's a lot. For 30 minutes. Und am phone. Oder für die Mitte am phone. And you'll notice something happening. Pudike Menessa. Diese weiß ich, Menschen zahlen actually die $30 jeden Tag zu gehen. So yes, if you do the first time you're finding out information, jetzt weiß ich, wie es sieht aus, New York City von der Haich. But that's boring. If you do it a second time, and you should do it a second time, if it's worth anything, then you'll have that happen to you. Darf nicht zum $30, man kennt das Team da, bei Victor Miller vielleicht das Team mit Apple Seeds. Aber nicht jeder eine kennt die Madreige. But it's actually a very simple thing. That's the only instruction that I have to give for this.
Ist getraut?
Sag mal.
Was meint an der andere Sache wird
Ich kann nicht sagen, was meint. Jetzt haben wir gerade was geschieht. Was meint, ist Philosophie, ist Theory. So das, was ist.
Alles ist die dich in Jens,
was
oder
ist.
Jens in dich, über dich heilig.
Ja, das heißt rappen.
You don't separate yourself from the scene.
The best way to describe it, and people, I mean, the poets and philosophers and mystics, they're all looking for ways to describe these kind of things all the time, and some people live in it all the time, some people only 5 seconds a year, and so on. But in the most basic sense, ich gehe mein ganzer Tag mit etwas, das eine Sort Model, das eine Sort Model von mich. Also du mich, und sie geht rein in mich information, es kommt raus von mich information, also, and so on. And it's obvious to everyone that watching a beautiful scenery is not an act of having information coming into my head from the outside. That's not, nobody does it for that. Also ich kann nicht sagen, kein größer Mekübel, das zu verstehen, ja?
No.
Keiner geht nicht dort, zu der Spitzbildung dort, da auszugehen von der Wiese sieht aus, von der Haich. Ich meine, not very interesting. You can look at a picture and have the same thing. And have the same information.
It's an experience.
Exactly. And the experience, if you just basically think of the most basic way to describe it, not tiefe teures, the most basic way to describe it is, somehow, you forget yourself in it. Du musst dich vergessen in eine interessante Masse, in eine interessante Book, in a movie. Or...
Is that why you could faint?
Well, you faint because it's too high and you lose your balance.
No.
No, you could definitely have physical effects from it, not a...
I fainted once at a beautiful sight. I fainted.
Of course.
Ich bin
I'm
heuer?
very tired.
Ich bin heuer?
No, it overwhelms you.
Whatever, can't you
It can overwhelm you.
When you slow my neck, when I train, come to the Basel show, the jewelry show. I said there were 500 supermodels with long gowns directing you. And
Oh,
saying,
okay, there you go.
no. I was gonna
Was macht das an?
Frank Mueller, no, but they all treat you like you think you're like wherever you go, people are like
A beautiful woman
do
macht
you
noch
want
was
water?
macht
Do you want
bereiches.
water? Do you want a drink? And then Frank Mueller had a building like 3 floors high, made of black marble, and that one window, and that one window there was a single bridge, Frank Mueller, a gold watch that had a diamond, and the pressure made the diamond flow around. So there was like you saw the single movement on a single bridge, and I was very tired. I'm looking at it, and there was like just one light shining on it, and the diamond is flowing around. Big black model. That's it.
in Azan.
And I'm maybe tired of that. And boom, I just fell on the floor. And okay. No, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think that it's just because I forgot myself.
Das ist schon eine gescheine Masse. Ich rede von vielen sehr simple situations.
Let me say, I forgot to stand.
The most simple explanation, the basic concept, the basic act, the basic move of being impressed by something is always of something. It's not of you standing here and getting some information. It's of somehow becoming dissolved into that, or that becoming part of you. Which direction you want to say it, ich weiß nicht. Yeah, you could say it from whichever direction you want. Het vergessen van zich, oder is geworden part von Jens, or Jens is geworden part von ihm. This is like questions of theories, which maybe sometimes like this, sometimes like that. But the basic feeling, the basic zach was mentioned, the reason why people go to look at beautiful things and so on is for that. That's what it is.
Feeling.
And if you want to look for the most basic way of describing it, we could call it leaving your body. Body might be a complicated word already because body includes a lot of things. But again, and if you make that mean the most simple thing you can make it mean, nicht gift, man geht heran, man geht heraus, ich weiß nicht. Leaving yourself. Body is a more simple way of saying it. That is the most simple way of describing this, and it's actually extremely normal thing. So ich kann nicht dürfen rebische Maßes, was keinem noch gewähnt hat. Jeder eine, was geht kicken auf a beautiful Platz, and macht der is exactly that. You could intensify it. Some people by nature have it more intensely. You could practice to intensify it. You could, like you said, you get physically tired from it. I don't know from what, from whichever. There's different theories for why, but you do. There's different other physical effects that could happen, but this is not the point. This is not was ich tut sie maßbar sein. But another sign, like this is one sign, like I said, you bump out of yourself. Another sign is sometimes you walk out of that. If you go, and you have to have, if you're distracted, interessant. Go to the Museum of Modern Art, or go to the Metropolitan Museum, or one of their rooms where there's some guy sets up lights and music and and sit here for 20 minutes, and you'll walk out, you'll realize that you forgot where you came from. You forgot where you were, not welche Direction man ist reingegangen von der Zimmer. Wie ich bin gewesen. It feels like you came from somewhere that's not yourself. It literally feels like that. People that know how to make this effect, right? Von dem sind artists, they can this machen. But that's your basic feeling of coming out of that room, or look at it, or watch the sunset, whatever it is. I mean, going to sleep and dreaming is like this very often, right? Where do you come from? Ergens. Wer ist gewähnt dort? Well, mich, but nicht mich. The body, right? Nicht mich. Das ist mich, was du den ganzen Tag. Some other kind of, don't know what, but something. Anyway, this is very basic stuff. And you should do it. And then, what I'm trying to get out of this is that when we say ecstasy, or we say out, this mind literally out of your body or out of yourself, this is literally what everyone is doing all the time. This is talking about beauty, usually, or sometimes something very scary, we say. Scary is not a good word. Or awesome, or something very attractive. These are basically the kind of things that are that people watch and these kind of things. Stimmt.
I tried it. I'll
Do
try
we
it. too.
seek this? We seek it.
Should you seek it? Do you seek it? Ich weiß nicht. It's a fact. This is what it is.
It's there all the time of these.
I think that it's a human
Every
need.
time I have joy and pleasure and like awe, but not leaving the body. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just the focus, not this.
It's a human need. One
Want
of
dat dan 30 minutes.
I just leave,
That's
leaving the
king all
body
the
down.
time. Like I lose myself in the mountain. But that's what he means.
Maybe.
yeah. Ich meine nicht gut nicht was das ist nicht geschehen. People we always have this problem when we talk about
It's called flow.
nein, ich
Yeah,
rede
you
nicht wegen
go with
Flow.
flow.
Nein.
Like,
Gerade rede ich wegen. Ich denke, es ist ein bisschen anders. Ich kann es ähnlich, ich weiß nicht. Auch gepunen, ich rede kein Wort von dem.
What's the word? Ecstasy?
Yes. That's what it means.
X.
Being out of yourself. Yourself is not such an interesting place to be. I have news for you. ganz boring. Ich reise da drauf zu. Es ist ganz interessant, zu gehen auf eine Trip einmal. And like I said, we can go into a lot of details on this when people, we get these chassidische masses, they get geflogen in the himmel.
When the lines step up,
Zelfs-
the lines gaan in the
Characters.
Yes.
characters. That what you mean by that?
Sometimes, and there's good and bad ways of doing this. I'm not saying that all of it is good. But yes. I'm just wanted to get to the most basic common definition of all of these things, which is being outside of yourself.
Google has different definitions of ecstasy.
Google's an organ reder aan, dat is ook Google.
Nah, there's extreme happiness, especially when
Nein, es treffen de originele, ich kann gelijk, ich kann nicht.
elation,
Okay, ich sag dich, was ich mein. Was Google meint, kann sich nicht zu geben.
static reveries.
Die Kimschen, die Mystik oder
Zadig. Okay. Jetzt ist gar nicht logisch, was Google's Dictionary sagt.
You use the word ecstasy.
Schön. And now, this is, like I said, a certain, call it artistic or beauty contemplation. But the same thing, and the same kind of thing, maybe even in a more powerful way in some sense, or in a less powerful way in a different sense, because when we talk about powerful, we always imagine lights and sirens. That's a big problem that we have. Maar die meint, Alice schon meint, dass wie de ja, man fliegt darauf in den Himmel. So der bei einer Kanal, man fliegt nicht darauf in den Himmel. So seht nach Rosen, man fliegt auf in den Himmel. Ja.
Is dit begaan?
Ja. Aber Busch nicht schleppardes.
Samt op dat geding?
Warte, du meinst, dass dann ist echt geflogen?
Maybe name. I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe you could get your body to fly too, but that's not the interesting part right now. And there's no is that, like I said, you can go into a lot of details with this, but the basic definition of specifically spashtus agashmis, it just means this. It doesn't mean anything besides for this. If you do it for a long time and with a lot of but that's all it means.
The way that I mean.
Yeah?
Anyways, try it out.
Hoi ben je 9 of je snaakt niet.
Try it
Hoi
more.
ben je 9 of je jongen.
The same thing is you can do or you should do with a thought, or with a truth, or with an insight. Jeder eine fuhrt doch Geheugenberg zu den Sachen. Wat is jeder eine weiß, als man kennt in derselbe Sache, any idea, at least one that is true or that you think is true. And again, most of the time when we learn ideas,
Was das is not true.
thought nicht, nicht, also, no, I mean it. Also irgendwas. Aber let's try to describe it and how it's different. We tend to think that thinking is something that the best kind of thinking, at least, is the kind where you stand at one place and there's information coming in or out of you, or you're judging it. Is it richtig information and so on? And that is maybe one kind of thinking or maybe one kind of learning, but it's not thought. And thought means, and the best way to do this is to think about things that you already know. Because otherwise, when you think of learning new things, then you have to be getting something from somewhere, right? Otherwise, you don't really want new things to come to you in a different way, most of the time, unless you're looking for prophecy. But normale Menschen Du willst das, wenn du lernst etwas, so ich lerne, du sagt der Rambam so, I get, right? That's the Woche der Weg von Lernen. Es ist aber noch Achune, so der Shabbos der Weg von Lernen. And what does that mean? That if you go and listen to the Lubavitcher instructions, just ring my. If you take any idea that you learn during the week, and I said before that it's better if you think it's true, because that's not an idea. An idea is something that somehow makes the world makes more sense to you. That's what ideas are. Or makes yourself make more sense to you, or makes something more intelligible to you. And if you take any such idea, and you watch it for 5 minutes, in the same way that you could watch the waves for 5 minutes, you watch the idea. Kind of mikvah, I'm not shower, and you sit down, and you think about that. Not learn it, think about it, or try to watch it, or try to describe it from the inside, right? Not from the outside. Now you'll notice that sometimes you could be there.
Be there?
Yeah, in the same way that you go and be that mountain that you're watching, and suddenly it's the mountain being very far is not relevant. What is relevant is you're having the mountain in you, or you being in the mountain, however you want to say it. The same exact thing, and maybe more than that, happens with thoughts. But you have to do the basic practice, which is thinking about things that you already know.
And this be for at least 5 minutes?
No, I'm just giving you numbers so you can have what to grasp on. It doesn't even have to be 1 second. But can ook zijn 4 shoe. The point is that it has to be is a bad word. The point is that it's a kind of watching more than a kind of what we usually call thinking, which is really a kind of judging. And sometimes you hear a new idea and it's enjoyable, you like it, it macht Sachen machen sense, and you remind yourself of it tomorrow. Just take that and do it. Das heißt, das one is lefnei tefillah, was steht in der Shulchan Aruch, and alle chassidische spurim. That's what it means. And then, this is what really means really knowing something or really grasping something. Because then it stops being, I heard that there's a thought, it becomes just the thing that the thought is describing, right? That's why I say the truth and not the thought. The understanding, right? A thought are just words that are trying to communicate some understanding, right? But what is the understanding? The opening up of the world, that it opens up to you in an intelligible way. Or the making senseness of things, that suddenly things make sense. That is a beautiful place. Just like watching the mountain is not about knowing how tall it is, or that there is such a mountain in that place. It's the actual beauty of the mountain. In the same way, that's why I don't say the beauty, the actual intelligibleness, the making senseness of the thought. And making senseness is something sort of like there. And if you do that, you'll be even more lost. We call it lost in thought. You'll be even more lost, or even more far from yourself than how far you are when you become part of the mountain. But anyways, just do it. And it works the more familiar the thought is to you, the better it works. Sure. Atkan. And that's called ecstasy. Those are sort of like emotional and intellectual ecstasies.
I think you could tell a little bit more about this intellectual ecstasy.
Was ook maar.
I think you could say more. I don't know. Ich kann so sagen, you say to everything no, then we'll know what we're talking about. Wenn man versteht, kann man sagen, ich verstehe nicht. That's the problem. I'm afraid of saying something because then I'm thinking about it.
But I'm not saying philosophy is the spitz geneigt.
I know 2 plus 2 is maybe not true, but let's say I know there's a thought. Me as going to school, 2 plus 2 is 4. So I'm thinking, wow, interesting. That's why.
How's that interesting? Someone
It's
so
Deze guy zegt, ja, dat is jeden dag. Wij zijn met deze, dus ik kan daarop gaan.
Nah, you're not problem with visiting the tickets.
How do I see this and And
You
like,
just sit back and see the pictures.
This is not bizarre.
So look.
Wenn das für any Wort,
well,
the Wort
someone
hat
said
uns
this and got come, I was
sie dann different, noch ein Tracht mit für eine Minute. Stops being that same word. Any word that Tracht mit für eine Minute, whatever it is, stops on the word. Stops
Yeah,
it's feeling anders.
Mensen trying different.
Zelba, dit we gaan merken.
possibly.
Mensch tries meditation called
Meditation.
blue light.
I don't know.
So you enter from the blue light, you meditate and slowly start seeing blue. It can take a week sometimes. Everything is blue, intense blue. And that's the spitz meditation. Once you get that, that's the
They zie gewoon
ecstasy.
dit bekend. Maar in deze,
They sit and
Imagine.
don't move the body for
A
a
week?
week.
you think
They
about
eat,
what?
They eat and they sit. They focus on the breath or whatever they focus on. And then suddenly everything becomes blue. That blueness is other gunas.
Doesn't sound correct to me.
Good man lacks.
Ich habe gesagt, dass es nicht stimmt. Ich habe gesagt, dass es sound nicht correct to me. Because it's-
The blue light, meditation. Shot in a Google.
Ich halte, dass the light is purple. Weißt du, dass es blue ist und wenn es Drache.
What's the scientific stuff behind it? Because it's blue. So explanation.
De kop.
Think about a basic thing. 2 and 2 is 4 is not really a thought. It's just a fact. It doesn't work for facts in that way. But that's the way you say it. But I could tell you what 2 and 2 and 4 means, or at least one of the things it means. And it's actually a fascinating thing to think about, or a fascinating place to travel to. But the place, my little daughter has like the pre-math fancy Common Core, whatever nonsense way of teaching math. And what they try to do is to give children the concept of number, concept of shape, concept of number, like without giving you math words for it. Okay, now I don't think any of the preschool kids are getting anything out of this, but I think that if you read that book, you will be in ecstasy. I'm serious. Why? Because it's very babyish, but it's also wondering or touching the most like fundamental or simple, interesting things about the universe that math is basically about understanding. Number theory is a little hard for me to talk about. But if you take what some people think is the base of math, category theory, right? And they have these exercises, okay? There was a page in Shira's book. It went like this. I gave you this exercise once already, right? Here's 3 objects, 2 more, 6 objects. Okay, yeah. Now, can you put them into 2 different boxes? And these Sachen, like that, 2 andere boxes, not 2 boxes. And it has to make sense.
Besides, makes sense.
Justify why it should be split into these 2 boxes. Nicht dann, like it, wenn sie viel zu kommen, like man es daran.
You need to say wire with wire, book with book, stuff like that.
Emotional.
Okay, no, did it?
They're emotional. Now, you'll think about this and you'll see that amazingly, let's say you choose a certain thing, okay? There's at least 6 different ways to put these 6 things in the box, not 6, 3. Anyways, it's combinant works. But if you think, for example, if you did one way, which is to separate things by what they're made out of, okay? These 2 things are made out of paper, the rest of the things are made out of plastic. Actually, these 3 things are made out of paper, the rest of the other 3 are made out of plastic, okay? Now you learn something, not a fact about how many things Yitzchok arranged on the table. You learn something that the pre-Socratics were wondering about. Right? And they walked around shikir from realizing this, right? That you could organize almost everything by what it's made out of. Did you realize that there's such a thing being made out of? Was nicht gewiss, bis der Minute, das kam nicht gehört davon. My daughter definitely didn't hear of it, right? Ich lebe in der Welt, ich sehe ganz Sachen, and notice that they're all made out of things, and somehow a lot of different things can be made out of the same thing, and there's somehow still different things, but they're made out of the same thing, or of similar things, or of similar categories of things. Yeah. But being made out of, you say the word elements, you already stop thinking. Ich weiß, was meint der Element. Ich weiß, was being made out of meint.
Sag das mal, Chapton.
This is Machapton.
Yeah,
It's a very. I don't even know how to explain being made out of by reference to something more basic. But there's something, and I can see it from categorizing my world into things that are made out of different things.
The same is true if you were just separated by size.
For sure,
It's also
things have
size.
magnitude. Things have. That was another
Yes.
invention. Now we could organize the whole world by size suddenly, right? And by other ways, there's by function, by not that many ways. Maybe you'll wonder about how many ways you could organize the world. You end up only by 10 according to Aristotle, 12 according to Kant. There's not that many. But Akapunim, this is a fascinating thing. And now you could just stare at anything.
Das ist so wichtig,
Ich kann sagen, das ist wichtig. Ich habe gefragt, gewollt wasen, how this is something. This actually makes, like I said, until you realize this, the world makes no sense. And after that, suddenly there's, but there's a making senseness. One of the basic drives, what this one intellect is about we're searching, we're in love, we're in pursuit of a making senseness of the world. Not only philosophers are after this, everyone's after this, but philosophers are the ones that take this as their primary objective. Right? So macht sense. As the mulgade experience, the guy's daran and if you're like a little bit OCD or anything like me, then you go walk into a bookshelf and you see there's all kind of books, Tusidirim, Chamushim, Rambams, science books. You feel bad, and you sit down for 2 days. You put everything into the right shelf, and suddenly you feel better, right?
Yeah.
Mulgade experience.
It's all the others.
Other than host, whatever it is. Let's make the sense. Wait, the world didn't make sense. The world. It's not understandable. I can't do nothing with a pile of books. Halacha books and Spurim books and Mases. And now I can do something with it, right?
What can you do with it?
Understand it. Do nothing. Ich kann es verstehen.
Understand why
It
you
makes
thought it that way.
sense. The world fundamentally, when we wake up in the morning, is closed for us. It's not making sense. And suddenly, sometimes it makes sense. And if you'll think about what this making sense actually consists of, then we can go back to what we said about the Golden Gate Bridge. It sort of consists of you becoming somehow that organization. Okay, this is philosophia, but there's the same kind of experience. This was just to give you an example of a kind of thought that could make you, scream eureka, right? Like, make you very, right? Eureka moment, remember? He realized that you could figure out how much water there's in a bathtub, whatever. There was not because jetzt kann ich solve the problem of I forgot how much the crown weighs or whatever. I realized something I realized something and it's out of myself. Rausgegangen von der Keilen.
But the moment is whatever, the moment is...
Like I said, I actually think it works better with familiar things, because with unfamiliar things we tend to judge. And familiar things we could actually allow ourselves to look at them and to realize them. In some sense, you always say you want to look at new things, but what we call new things is not really this. It's like, okay, I'm making things too complicated. Think about the fact that everything has a cause. Do you realize that changes everything?
No, but let's go to if we know it already, to get that moment. You're saying that if you know it, that it's use something familiar.
Mm-hmm. I pretend to know this already. I actually don't. So the thing with familiarity is that it's actually complicated. Or at least when I say it's complicated, I mean I don't have an easy way to say it. I have to think that familiarity is usually fake. Familiarity, when something feels familiar, it means that you're not thinking it. Right?
Yeah.
And like you give it a name, and now you're thinking about the name and not about the thing. Right? Sure. Like when I say, look, the world is has like a quality of being made out of. And then you say elements. Yeah, of course, the people that discovered elements, this is what they discovered. It's actually a fascinating discovery. I mean, all of modern science is based on that discovery. And at some point, we didn't know it. From the history of science. But even after we sort of know it, we don't know it. Right? Because we're not impressed by it. Like, of course, there's elements. Well, that's just a word, elements.
It's not a word. It's a physical composite.
Ja, aber wenn die tracht wegen der Vater, tracht nicht wegen being made out of, right? Being made out of is actually, and it's actually, by the way, and it actually doesn't make sense. That's why if we learn about matter and if we try to actually make sense of this, we'll have to realize there's a ton of puzzles here. It doesn't actually make sense. I'll just notice something, that's all. And at least in some sense, that is outer body experience, that noticing. Whenever you notice it, if you notice the first time or the second time.
I'm thinking about moments. This is such a thing that if somebody tells you what's the first thing you realize that all human faces, like the stupid stuff, whatever it is, that all human faces are either you look at a face, you see that every person's either looks like an eagle, like a dog, like an ape. But if there's like 4 or 5 faces that all categories go into that. And when you see that, when you think about it, so you'll go around, every time you think about it, everything's going to change for you. You look around. Sometimes it's a zen, it can actually be, but it's a discover. I think it's like a new discover. It's that thought, but it's familiar the thought, but I'm applying it. I'm discovering it again. I don't know. Is that what you mean? I don't know. I'm trying to.
I think that. So my experience, for example, is that, like I said, it seems to be counterintuitive, but I don't think that novelty, in the sense that we usually think about it, is even interesting. But I'm saying things. I'm going too fast now. Still get a warning. For example, most people have this concept called spoilers. If you know the end of the movie, it's not exciting. To me, that makes no sense. It's a lot more exciting when you know the end. So the Ravak, ich sage nicht, ich kann Eide nehmen bis hier, ich weiß nicht, ich esse. So da ist jetzt kicken am Movie, und ich sage dir, Eide nehmen, als mir, it doesn't make any sense. Wenn ich weiß the end, ich enjoy es, ich sage besser, weil ich hab was geht vor, und ich bin zu mich, was willst du?
The idea is not to miss.
What kind of weird idea is that?
Come on.
Nein, that's not true. The idea is to have a certain tension. No, the idea is to realize, I'm not denying that every story, like,
read books like that. They go first in the back.
I'm not, no. That's also, ich will nicht maße mit Jens. Nein, ich will nicht maße mit Jens auch. That's, nein, ich will nicht maße mit Jens auch nicht. Skipping to the back is also, they're curious to find out what happened, so you know what happened. Nobody reads books to find out what happened. I don't know why you would ever read a book to find out what happened. If you want to find out what happened, you can go ChatGPT, summarize this movie for me, I'll give you the what happened. Yeah, and whenever you do that...
So you just contradict
Heros, whenever you do that, you realize that's bechlal nicht interessant. Whatever ChatGPT does to summarize things, it's not worth anything. So nicht fun. Ich weiß nicht, actually if you need to know something, sagen it's stark. But it's not and fun at all. Why not? Because it's like if I'm a mountain hiker. Ich will umkommen to the top of Mount Everest. You know that I have a picture for you of how it looks on the end. Nicht interessant. Ich will dich kriechen in der Berg. Ich will kriechen von hinten bis oben. That's what I want to do, right? I want to go through the ganze Maße. And derselbe Sache, als wenn ich will lernen am Movie, ich will git verstehen the kasha, you know, the how's it called in the story arc, right? The plot, the challenge, and I want to see how it gets resolved. I want to go through that whole thing. Not because I want to know what happens in the end. That's such a silly way of understanding what art is for, what stories are for. Stories are not for telling you what happened in the end. Jeder eine weiß, was geschehen zum Sof, und dann raus von Mitzrayim. That's not interesting.
Well, I got to the back, to the end.
The experience is experience. What it means even to like have a story is to go to have this thing. Ich kann doch gegangen die ganze Sache. Papa will ja schicken, die will nicht schicken. Will ja schicken nicht. Is he going to send? I know, of course, that he's going to send in the end. It's not a question of information. It's a question of a certain understanding, of a certain. You can say the word experience if you like that. I hate that word because it's a cop-out word when you can't explain things. Say it's an experience, but it's a certain understanding or a certain action. It's analogy. The best analogy I have is to climbing the mountain, which would be very dumb to say. You know, Lewis and Clark had their whole expedition. Finally, they found out how to get to the Pacific Ocean, and now this is a interessant, right? Now it's the whole thing because we have a map. We know where the Pacific Ocean is. It doesn't make any sense, this. It's such a funny way of thinking about anything. And if you know the end, now you know what you're doing, now you know what the story is. So now you could actually understand the whole thing. Right? You want to know the whole thing at once. You want to somehow, be part of the whole story, right? Not of this shtickle of the story.
Actually, the Lucy is interessant. Because one of the things people don't realize, they had a job, they knew where they're going. And somehow it was amazing because
they got stuck in the mountains and
they got stuck. China, it was much more terrible story. People got stuck by Indians, were way worse, and they got killed. They got sick. They had a destination. What's not fascinating?
Ausgetrotten der Weg. Any case, what I'm saying is, so therefore, this is just an example of why I don't understand why people talk about novelty, learning something for the first time. To me, the second time is always better. Also wie man jetzt so die Gravaien sagen, als verstehen, wie man macht der zweite Seite und jetzt tut. Was schon rausgegangen mit rein, nein, der zweite Seite ist sach mehr Geschmack.
I totally disagree with you.
Die disagrees, aber ich sogar Fakt.
Fact. Fact.
I already know what's going to happen. Nah, I already know from last year also, but now ich denke viel von Hand. Ich sag mehr frisch. Sag besser. Der Schnurig sagt, dass ich meine, Schnurig sagt, ja, Schnurig sagt, der Fahren davenen, and you know, the difference is that Phyllis Shibule Prokim, darf man sich mit Sadas an der Davenen, right? We have Lishmanesser, Neuchishmanesser. Wenn ist der bessere Shmanesser, der erste oder der zweite? When it's the real one is the second one, right? Sicher. Ich gerade den, aber the real one is the second one. Der Ried Kudish sagt, der erste ist bin, der zweite ist Chachma, sag Eche. Jeder ist Moide. Ich meine, it's not gesagt, schlicht Tipps, also Sadas an, there's somehow we got into this thing that we do twice. But ja, in der Luche ist, darfst du Sadas an, fahren mit Davon, darfst du wissen, wo der Geist davenen, right? Der Luche. Und man weiß nicht, if you don't know the end of the Machze, you're not like, man, der Luche, da wissen die ganze Sache, fahr dem. If you want to understand the Masechta with Megat in the Yeshiva the next is man, the best idea is to learn the whole Masechta with Feinas Mannen. Jeder weiß this. Not looking for surprises. Like, who? We're looking for something surprising, but in a whole different way. And the kind of surprising where knowing it in advance makes it better or not worse. And I think one of the reasons is because when you don't know the end, you're worried about this information. We're missing a stick of Neigerig. Man kann sehen dran, weil man neigrig zu wissen, was es in the end. Das will du verstehen. It's a whole different kind of thing. And especially, another reason why old things are better is because we don't actually understand fully the new things. Whenever you hear a new sheet, then every time you're struggling to get into it, well, half of the time you're not having pleasure. You're struggling, right? Like, you only know it partially. Geschmack. Ich will doch so sagen Geschmack. Geschmack ist, wenn ich weiß, die ganze Sache, and now I could be there. Whenever I say see the second time, it's much better the second time always than the first time.
Okay, that's inside that.
Ja, aber Schiele verstehe ich, wie du sagst, aber nicht mit kein Seite.
Nicht mit gar?
Seite Nacht. I think it's different.
Sign up step over, but that book. You can find a book after reading.
That's because they're bad books. If you'll read a good book, you'll be able to.
Well, there's good. Can't read a good story twice.
Those are the bad books. Da darfst noch kleine gute books. Schlechte
Can we
movies.
read a line twice? A line, yes. So the book has to be written as good as that line.
Nah, a deeper book, yeah.
Nah, good
A deeper
line.
book, yeah.
A good one, yes. It wasn't internalizing.
Neem retten nog, no?
Ich kann fiction books.
Most of the books we read are extremely the opposite of information dense, right? They say everything 4 times and they pad it with a lot of words, so you shouldn't even read it once. But anything that's worth reading once is worth reading 100 times. The nerve from wissen, was steht, stops you from understanding.
Ja, gut.
Ich habe gesehen, weiß der bald viele, wenn greift sich zieh für die Schuhe und singt mit der ganze Nigen mit alles. So wenn das you damals, oder wenn it dann von mit actually. Ever wonder? Ich mir mal, you know, I was watching someone, fast Licht, the food, so die ganze Licht, so gedenken, dann ist der ganze Geschmack. No, so, wenn es fake, wenn es echt. Der Territz ist, ich rede, wie es darf sein, das ist, weiß ich. Der Territz ist, als die ganze Sache, man darf machen nach uns, hallo, ich nur, man darf machen nach uns, das nicht kann, wenn der sagt, ich habe so umgereiht, sich steht, ich nur, ich habe sich ziegreiht, it has to not be new for him when he comes to the Shuna. You think that the Shuna is a Geschmack, was ist nahe, nein. Tun ist nahe, wem es ist nahe, ist nicht over auf der Halluche. when he has to prepare, so therefore, when daven for b'shas maase, he shouldn't be worried. Again, can the nisach, leni chetana nisach, can I put it from the other dag? No one's gonna do it.
Euch Shemoneh Esrei.
Sure. I think that I used to say that das kommt es da ran. Als mit steht es ist emes, tun ich da wenn man tages, emes steht nicht genug. Also immer tages. Well, if it's a heilige dag, also wir husten, dann ihr put begla. Ob es da mal wachtige tage, was da loch? Mit de tage tun ein halt da. Mechiv li yashav da, steht nicht gemor. Das mechiv. Als bist du geschmiert wird da, nimm noch April, ich weiß, was ist mechiv. Ja, so fragt der Schala, Elegid, was dann größte Tage in der Früh. Darf davenen. Tu nicht davenen, laat da Tage. So mit tu nur davenen, wenn man kann Tage am darf davenen. Von dem darf man zweimal. Das ist das von euch. Das ist das von euch, ich meine es. Schon heute gewesen? Ja, da. And it's true, and everything, and usually, for example, if you do a sheet from a shoe, whatever it is, or the lens that is pushed to, ganze Woche ist gelernt etwas, a lot of things were complicated, so wenig ganz klar. But usually there's like one thing that you actually is open for you. It actually makes sense. And it actually opens a lot of other things too. But this is actually, this is a way to push it, right? It's not a chiddush, to push it. A chiddush meint, darf sich mitschenen. Wow, ja, so ist ja nicht. Das stimmt das mit das stimmt das Bianz. Sagt, das ist Pushet, dann verkehrt. Das ist mal bei alle andere Sachen, right? And if you think about that thing, you see that's very geschmack. And you'll see that you lose yourself in it. For those 5 minutes, then you'll come back, you'll say, wow, es noch du a Welt. Ja, ganz interessant. This is all archuvas of instructions. It wasn't explaining the espashas agashmis. It was just instructions for how there could be espashas agashmis from thoughts. And I said that in order to get to that, you have to be put there from the daga to understand, which is a whole different level. It's judging. It's not understanding, or it's learning. Also, no.
I'm stuck here. Handtuch geht da an die cliffs of Shal Alto, du gewein, hat ich wie gesagt, the Zidder von der Teudisch. Und was ist die Zidder von der Teudisch 7? Und das ist jetzt, ich würde gelenkt die Zidder von der Teudisch 7. Und ich weiß, man kann so viel, ich weiß, man kann ein Gingel, der erste Mal gelernt, was rief, wenn man sagen, wie jede Cliff, die macht Sens. Die Zidder von dieser Arbeit. Und ich weiß, ich rede mich an, also es kommt einfach nach Silbertal, ich habe mal kicken an, gesehen, was der Zidder von Teudisch 7 ist. Then it's going to make sense to me. Oh, so then, so I can imagine, ich weiß actually, ich darf es wissen, I'm missing this piece. Ich denke nicht jetzt,
No.
ungezeugen, ich gehe sein, es kommt ich gehe sein.
Now you're going to relieve your pain. You're going to relieve your pain. That's the first problem. You haven't had pain, that's vergessen. So first you relieve your pain.
Nein, ich denke, wie Geschmack sie gewähnt, wow.
Maybe it's not any more geschmack, because it doesn't actually make sense. That's another question. You have to be the...
It's interesting. It has a sense. Not a side to the world, not a side to the
Okay, so yes, but yeah, when you're busy relieving the pain of not knowing, that's not geschmack. I mean, that's like taking medicine.
So that's like when
I don't know how to daven
for the, I don't know
Yeah.
the now.
And you leave, Baruch Hashem, we passed. Darfst du nach zweit, wenn man darf nicht, Baruch Hashem. And of course it's very interesting. And by the way, if you want to do tzarifim, you have to actually do it. I learned the class from my Rebbe, when ich heute zu sagen Gematris, man darf rechnen Gematris. Because it's not fun. Die Worte Gematri Jenewatsch, muss wissen von mich. Die ist, jedes 10, and then you live it, right? Then you're in there. The same thing with tzarifim. Tzarifim is like a very simple thing. You have to do it. If it stimmt nicht, then you'll realize that it stimmt nicht, you're like stuck, ups, vor a cliff, try somewhere else, macht sie like na koil, ich weiß nicht. It's at least fun. People don't realize that people read Spuren and a lot of they say it's not fun. Of course, if you don't do it, nothing is fun if you don't do it. It's like reading a math book with all the exercises without doing them. It's useless. Yeah, if you do it, then it's fun. Look, jeder hat fun andere Sachen. Nicht jeder hat lieb jede Sache. But just the basic idea of that we're so used to just knowing things and not doing them. Doing thoughts, right? Thinking thoughts. Of course, I mean, Lefi said, if you want to have Kodesh, maybe it says in Sefer Yetzirah, you start doing tzarifim, not knowing. Ich weiß auch, dann kann man alle zusammen mit alles. But if you actually do it, by the way, it actually works usually. It actually drives you crazy, or takes you out of here. It's just a way. Everything are ways. Did you ever realize this is like the elements thing? Did you ever notice? The erste step von ich HaKodesh is rausgehen von sich. Nach dem Treffen reden weiter. What is the erste step, right? Did you ever realize that all words are made out of the same few letters? By the way, this is as interesting as my story, even more interesting in some sense than my story with the things. And then we started going backwards. Okay, so let's just take the letters and see how many words we could make out of it. And did you notice that if we take the same word and we arrange the letters differently, it has a totally different meaning? Now, does this actually explain the universe or not? This is noch a shale, but it's at least fascinating.
Das war fliegen mein. Das ist ein Wort.
Aber Yitzchok, als du kennst das Heimdenken, was haben wir da han getan? Lass uns zusammenstellen. Man gerät in für eine Ecstasy, man gerät in für...
Nein.
Wie bringt man es daheim zu? Du sagst, man redet wegen normalen Mathe.
Wie bringt man es raus von daheim?
Ja, es ist ein bisschen peirig. Aber lass uns recht.
I'm just giving instructions today. I didn't say any titles. The erste instruction is nemen a blieb and just steeren of his 10 minutes.
Instructions of what's the manual for in order to the instructions could I just scan
The far is a machshava zura.
No, it's not key instruction.
Okay.
You want to end up with a piece of furniture, right?
Yeah, so the instruction is what's the purpose of it? The purpose for the instructions is that
Yeah, the purpose is, but the purpose is part of the instruction. Just to
it's
be
not
clear.
ready for next week instructions.
No, the purpose is
Die
part.
instructions.
Listen, a purpose is part of an instruction.
Stei.
So wenn ich an dem Mann Lטייל באוילם מסליot. Sorry. Herausgehen von sich. So, this is the instruction. And
Bis wenn darf man es stehen? In was gar geschehen Noten.
wir können doch dem zurückkommen. Also Zeit kommt schon.
No problem. We'll try to
Können wir geschehen nach. There's just instruction for that. That's so you should understand my shit from last week. But but it's also good for Fnatzma. What do you mean? Sometimes if you're whatever, it's useful for so many things.
Yeah.
It's very useful. But the kavuna is there. And the zwei Wege. The erste Weg is sie kicken auf Adlim, oder sie gehen zu der Prospect Park, kicken auf der Wasser, oder neben der Wasser dort by the bridge of Bay Parkway. Just do it, you'll see. It's fascinating. And the andere Eize ist es recht nach Sachen, man weiß schon. And nicht, was man weiß gibt, not that you don't worry about at all. Think about something we're so used to learning with worries, with tages, MS, and nicht MS. Let's take the simplest thing that you already know is true, that you're not worried about, that it actually feels good to think about, because it helps you understand other things, because it's clear. And just think about it. This is the mitzvah Talmud Torah. This is the mitzvah from Achona Letfila, from everything.
Das ist ein bisschen Talmud Torah.
Warte. Wie gießt du bei Yom V'Layl, was meint das? Sagen die Chachomem, lernen neue Sachen, das ist nur in der Woche tun wir lernen neue Sachen. Weißt du, ob du nicht lernen kann neue Sachen, ja? Hallo, nach Mishnah.
So I think it's funny, Yeshiva guys end up learning the Shlesh Ma'agul Fam.
Du nicht lernen neue Sachen, Shabbos. Es ist ein Zar, ohne Shabbos. Shabbos darf man lernen neue Sachen, was man weiß schon. Whatever it is, a thing that is already extremely simple and understand. So schon macht das nicht Sense.
Aber eine Sache hast du gesagt, vorige Woche, the knowledge is in the Rosens. Kommt nicht von mir.
If you'll do this, you'll see how it's in the Rosen. And then you could come back to figure out what the theory of it is. This whole sheet is just that you could see it that way. That it shouldn't be a crazy idea, was Yitzchok gesagt, das steht in Kabbalah vor.
So wie ist es in der Rosen? Wie ist es? In einer Platz? Das ist
Jetzt legst du Philosophie Kasches.
Also vorige Woche das?
Ich habe gesagt, ich will keine Schritte von Jens an. Ich kann nur sagen Instructions, wie so, ich ziehe Team, die Sort Sache, was nimmt dich heraus von, was bringt dich zu etwas Platz, was heißt Trachten, oder was nimmt dich heraus von dich and makes you one with the thought, or one with the mountain that you're watching. And then, after you do that, if you're very curious, if you have that kind of inclination, then you can start to think what this actually means, and we could do metaphysics. But this is not metaphysics, Shir.
Isn't this a way of meditation? a certain degree? Would you just describe them?
Was heißt noch die Wort, kannst du mal sagen?
Langsam ist es meditation.
They see the
And is it making you do it or making you not do it?
makes me to understand it a little bit better.
How does it make you understand better by giving it a name?
Well, you can research it, you read meditation.
Na, research nicht. Research ist das Researchen doch das Team. Also die Gemurre, was ich mit Islam to her, I was middle of saying, am sagt Shema Yisrael zweimal a Tag, the thing that you know, the most simple thing, kennst du, nicht kein Schimpfsuffik, nicht kein Problems, ob du Problems, noch ein neues, but in the most simple sense. Take us 30 seconds in the morning, aber the minimum is, and the Iker is Achim with Mevais. Take 30 seconds in the morning and 30 seconds at night. That's what it means to be a Yid. And it's also a lot of fun. Because otherwise you forget. And then you go around only bumping it. You only start to think when you have a new problem. Why would you hurt yourself by only thinking when you have something you don't understand, when it hurts to think? Then people go around saying, oh, it's hard to think, it hurts. Of course it hurts. Anything that you don't understand, that's what it hurts. But du kennst dich schon so viel Sachen, ja? Du weißt schon so viel Sachen. To some level. Why don't you sometimes think about the things that you already enjoy? Stam richtig ist das, ins Leben eine ganze Zeit neue Sachen.
Ich meine, in Salman, dass bringt nicht kein Teil. Ich weiß es schon.
That's fine. Es bringt doch nicht kein Teil, zu kicken dreimal auf der, zu sagen, jeden Tag geht zurück, zu kicken noch mal auf der Sinn. Ich kann Teil, ich kann es da bringen, Teil. Teil ist the definition of Teil is something that you don't do for itself, you only do for something else. So what's the something else this? Okay, this is noch Hashir. But of course. Of course.
Was ist der Elis von David und Kaddish oder Mama?
So Mama geht rechnen gar ein. Tate, actually.
Tate.
Weiß ich. They say,
Was ist das?
I don't know.
So Tate geht rechnen gar ein, auf Stein ist der Witz.
Ja, ich weiß, ich
Du
sage,
bist
ich sage,
MS,
was
mach schon.
for the chance that it is, Tichas.
What's that level?
What do you want from
I
me?
don't know.
Was reut du in den Kayit, Stam? This is what all the people that are having fun are doing. They're thinking about things they already know.
They do.
Yeah. These days, to do two sort chachumim, two happy ones and sad ones. The sad ones are the ones that only think about things they don't know, and the happy ones are the ones that also think about things they know. That's also a problem. But
They detail the things that you know.
no, it's just a
It's
detail in
nicht,
practice, 100%.
It's nicht
100%.
We're getting hung up on this.
No, you got hung up on it because
Yeah,
everyone keeps on asking me about it, so I'm giving you, this is all instructions.
Because
It's
it's not
instructions
really-
for how to find out that thinking is something that happens to you, or it's a way of getting out of yourself. That's all it is. It's not inherently the point that I'm trying to make. No, I'm asking. It's just a very important hurdle to overcome because of the way we think about thinking usually, which is the opposite. But when you'll do this, then you should do it. It's not complicated. It's the most simple thing. It's easier. This is easier than what it is bis jetzt.
But you can also
I'm
do
making
the
your
things
life
that you don't
easier.
know. You can do
Not only is
things-
it easier, it's also refreshing. It's like any trip in some sense. Because it's kind of quite hard to keep on schlepping this all the time.
Slap it, what?
The same place, being in the same place. Sammel gesehen, gewinn stocken an der Arbeit, der ganze Tag, darfst du jetzt gehen? Ist der Weg gehen? Ja, stell dich wohl, bist stocken Joli den ganzen Tag. Ich habe größere Jail, nein? Nach Eget, am mal weg gehen, nein? And you'll see, if you do that, you have a lot more energy. Or I don't know, at least you get rested sometimes. I mean, ein Mensch darf sich rest, Mensch kann doch nicht die ganze Zeit dieselbe Sache, ja? And being you is the most tiring thing.
Du.
Recht daran. A ganze Tag bin ich Joli. Jetzt geht es mal etwas anderes. These are just basic ways of doing it. If it still doesn't work, you get the drugs, but go ahead and push the Sache. Yes, and if you think like this, then all these weird metaphysics of the knowledge being some place that you go to, or some kind of unification of the knower and the known, all of them start to be obviously trying to explain this. There's nicht the richtige explanation. But before you ever thought, and there's nothing to need an explanation. Ich kann reden wegen dem, ich kann reden, du shittas a Rambam, shittas a Plato, shittas this, was mind knowledge, all these Torahs. But it's not very interesting if you never have the question, right? Or if the question you have is based on a kind of thinking that they don't even consider thinking really. You have other questions, epistemological questions, but not this kind of questions.
So this is explain how this is trachten.
So the main Sache was...
Trachten is a Platz.
Says the main Sache was Rav Friedig am getracht, wenn wir gesagt trachten, yes.
Vielleicht von derselbe Sache nochmal.
Nicht nochmal, ein langer Mal.
Aber Hand, im Morgen nochmal.
Und das wird... Maar dat is wegen dem Morgen oder der
Wegen dem Morgen der Hand, wegen dem haben wir uns geredet, die letzte 20 Minuten, das ist nein, das ist alt, das ist der Cholde, wie sagt das, Kolja Banech Chadushim, whatever. That was why, because of this question, we get into that. Yes, contemplating it, it's called usually, right?
Maybe we should do a
trip,
exercise
trip.
together.
Kannst du nicht zusammen?
I thought we did do such exercises now.
Ich habe getan zweieinhalb von Sachen, von this sheet.
Wenn er gesagt wegen der Shira's book, yeah, it didn't like.
But the thing is,
it wasn't like a,
yes, no, the thing is that it's that you
we
have
had
to.
it for slight moments.
Yes, the thing is that you have to do a lot of research on yourself to actually find out how things make sense to you, because we're very used to not ever doing that. Right? Take something like basic that you supposedly know. No, sag mal, how much von der Sache. It's basic. Jedi advised.
A square, a triangle.
Die advice about Shem what we want to see this. Jedi advice in Esser Milchix and Fleischix. Und du musst Milch and Fleischix.
Okay, but those are not basic things. Anyway.
Jedi advice Eis of Sein oder Yankov.
Okay.
Als schlechte the Eigenschaft von Arbeit von Seine.
I'm just looking for something that I know how to get from one place to the other. Ja, alle Jeden weisen, als
ich weiß nicht, was er mir nach.
Alle Jeden zijn in het Zeraam. Waar zijn de Teuro?
those are just things that happened in history. Yes, but take something that you're very used to knowing and also sometimes arguing about if it's true. Like, Eis of Soin Yaakov. Ja, alle Jeden, alle Chayder eigentlich weißen, als Goyim, oder at least plechte Goyim, haben wir fahnd Jeden. It's not a pleasurable thought, so it's not going to work so well. That could make you scared if you want.
That's right.
Do you think this is true?
With the eyes of Yaakov?
Yeah. Or to the extent that it's true, do you think that it's true? There is such a thing? Anti-Semitism, I of English?
It looks like it. It's hard to think with the eyes of Yaakov.
Okay, again, whatever it means.
So much books are written on
There's
this.
some people, you just think of people that...
You don't, there's no genetic, like you don't
It's genetic. It is genetic.
You don't have muscle memory of
Sag it,
anti-Semitism.
so nicht genetic. Aber
It's
du
such
als
a
Sach,
thing, it's part of society conditions. Yeah. Today, as we stand,
okay, so then du me in seine Jeden,
Nicht, weil sie nach Arabes. No.
Wait, now you're arguing about it.
It's all fun
Ich will unkemenzi, but
From Arabic?
no, what I'm trying to get at is, we could argue about all these good questions, right? Is weil geboren, na goy not kompres mile? Is es weil, and so on. These are all
So
good
many
questions,
books was
right?
written on
Is it
this.
because of the occupation? Okay, good questions. But I don't know what you people believe, okay? But let's say, after whatever it actually means, whatever you really think is the case, Ich ben Ayid. Nobody asked me if I want to be. Just happened like that. By the way, did you ever think about that?
Yeah.
Nicht why.
Mach mich sehr nervös, the fact. I am not happy
Exactly.
with it. Nicht nervös. It's something that you have, like, there's something, this is just like, there's something called fate, like people have words for this, right? I'm trying to not say words, right? There's some basic, extremely basic, at least for where we are. Something extremely basic about what I am,
Und das ist gepickt.
and then doesn't, maybe Efshem kann laufen, Efshem nicht, ich weiß nicht. But bis der Wahl,
You only hear us,
and think about this, and it should do something to you. I don't know what, but not something. I think it makes me. You really want to know what?
Auf ein Level kannst du...
Ich halt noch bei der Goy, ich halt noch bei dir, right?
Kannst du gerne ein Level fahren.
Guess what? This didn't start by being a Yid. That's the only thing that bothers me. But it started by being born a man and not a cockroach. And
It's not an issue.
ich habe gesagt, ich habe gesagt, cockroach, sadik. Die ist alle Isches in der Kacke.
No, gender you could choose that.
Okay, hart zu kann man sagen, aber mich ist immer keine
Only Zeit,
Frau.
only
Wer bin
Zeit.
ich?
Yes. And basically, so now I'm reevaluating like my whole conception of self, because I went to the school of modernity that taught me that I'm an independent agent that chooses what to do and what to be. I feel in yeshiva, yeah, it's choslen, it's bechira. And I'm not here to argue with bechira, but at least something that makes a very big difference, or many things, or most of the things that make most of the difference, are just the way they are. Who chose it? Ich weiß nicht. Aber so ist es. Sicher nicht mich. Suddenly I lost myself. I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, sorry. And now, after me losing myself, this is literally losing myself, just, right? Ich weiß, ich kann doch sagen Ashir, und niemand sagen Ashir ist predicated as auf so viele Sachen, was ich halt. Anyways. And this just destroys all of that. Guess what? We could rebuild it. We could say, I also didn't choose to give the Shir. But, and now, besides, and that somehow, there's some other people, zusammen gechoost, oder nicht gechoost, auch da kann ich das schade, was die Sort Sache, was ich bin, was ich sicher nicht gechoost, that much I know, not a get, as far as I know, nicht mich personally, ich bin älter sein, ich weiß nicht. They actually believe, and was like leiden as a Herzkirch nicht, they actually live and have a plan, that this is like the problem of humanity. This is what's making Mashiach not come. Nicht etwas Chagetin. And they're like every day sitting there and planning where they're going to buy the missiles and who they're going to talk to and what articles they're going to write and what kind of songs they're going to sing and so on in order to make me disappear. I'm in so many places now. Nobody really thinks like this. Nobody lives in this truth. This is like a really weird and scary place to go to. I don't know if it's a good place to go to, but it's a place. It's a lot stronger than my thoughts of it. Me giving words to it is not making me feel in control of it. I might come back and say, okay, so we're going to buy nuclear weapons. Actually, this is the plan. But ich halt noch vader plan. This is, I didn't say anything I didn't know yet now, but I just took myself out of here very quickly. I'm basically in the same place where Theodore Herzl was watching the Dreyfus trial. Literally the same place. It was happened 250 years ago. There's a guy, I could describe you his situation. You'll see it's just the same, the thought is the same thought.
It's the first time you witness anti-Semitism?
No, but he's not
Ich
in
habe
that place.
If you think this is all false,
Is jetzt
ich rede nicht jetzt von den Chakiris.
kann morgen dort kein
Ich rede nicht diese MS. Actually, die ganze Sache nach Fantasie ist 30 Stunden. Ich rede nicht von dem. Du nur gewollt describen. Ja. Ach
The
einmal.
first time he saw the
Something hit him. Something hit him. He was in.
Jetzt schon gehabt.
Ich habe gesehen, dass das erfahren. I'm news reporter.
Yeah, but the point is, du a Mensch, Tzadik, der Maß von Herzl ist selbe Maß, was ich mir jetzt getan. Du a Mensch, was lebt sich.
Then he saw the running in the street.
Yeah, that's the story, but I'm not trying to get at this history story.
The mass is outside.
Whatever is what I'm trying to get at is not the story, wie es ist geschehen zu ihm. What I'm trying to get at is that he did exactly what I just did now. That he is a human being, and er ist die ganze Zeit gemeint, dass er ist a human being. So er decides, zu einer Journalist, und zu wollen in Wien, und sich hasst mit sein als ein Meidl, und so weiter. And bis der Fall, hat er gehabt, als Koidukol ist nicht kein human being, ist er Yid. Beide, ich meine. And somehow that means that there's some power in the world that they mention was that there's not a mushal for that. There's something that is here to make sure that he stops existing. Okay, that causes him a lot of thoughts and a lot of maskunas. But there's next steps. Just saying there's such a place. It's not about the thing, it's about the reality, right? It's about the...
It's a dark place.
If I would speak in that place, let's say there's a monster called wie heißt der?
Small.
Whatever, the Samach Mem, and schon Fabrius Oilam. This is just a mythical way of describing the same thing, right? Schon Fabrius Oilam, der Reibisch gesagt, will machen Jiden, will machen Menschen, hat sich gegengestellt. It's like a being, like a thing. And since then, Reibisch sometimes wins and sometimes he wins. And he's still around. So then, Meraket V'Hanayni. And if you go, and you're not allowed to go there because it's dangerous. And if you go there, either you come back with a plan what to do with this, or it's a thing. Wer sagt, du warst schon gegangen, haben gefragt, du gehst vor mit Mashiach. Wie ist was das? What did they do? He's basically doing this. Es ist gewinn dasselbe, es ist gewinn eine zweite Souten, ich weiß nicht. Ja. Der Yosef Leleiner gehabt die Souten und like, what is it about? It's just a visionary way of doing the same thing. And Hertel Bible had visions too, but the testery. Ich kann auch um visions. Ich kann gelegt sich getracht, und das ist noch wegen. We get into the questions. Mit Recht mit Wörter, oder mit Pictures, oder mit... The fact is that this is not things that we made up when we're thinking, not things that happen in our brain. You could very simply see that this is a place to go to. This is a truth that exists somewhere out there, I don't know. That's schon metaphysics, but es ist nicht eine Sache, was hyped und endigt sich. Es ist nicht der Weg, was sich tragt gewöhnlich. Es ist nicht, there's something else. I don't want to do too much imagination, because imagination actually makes you think that it's exciting. It's not exciting. The real reality is a lot more away from yourself than imagination. That's why it was Hashem to actually imagine things. Is gestanden Warte von der Sache, wie ich, wenn ich dies unter. We already said this a few shirim ago. Because imagination, in some sense, is always still in your mind, and thought is much further from your mind than imagination. Okay, but this, you know this already, or not, but it's not halach. Steist doch so, ja, wenn man harge de Chule, starben nicht alle Antisemiten. And that's something that you notice better when you think without pictures. Because it's less inside of you and more you going there. In the same way, you could, die suchst Kiddush, Freitag zu Nacht, ich gebracht der Welt in 6 Tage, ich weiß nicht, was meint, ja? Whatever the nimshel is, but still it's a basic Sache, was du verstehst. Der ist noch gesagt, man kann nicht sagen, also Eides darf man es keiner sehen, ja? Sie macht Eides auf Maas Bereiches. Die was gewähnt hat? Yeah, when you say Kiddush, you should go there, otherwise your eye shake. What does it mean to go there? Kiek auf die Welt. Das ist die Welt, was der Eibisch gemacht in 6 Tagen. Ich habe jetzt gearbeitet für 6 Tage, also der Eibisch gemacht. Die Welt in 6 Tagen. Und ich habe es dir geriet, also wie ich die jetzt. Watch it. Das ist shit, weil der Maße Bereich ist.
Ich weiß nicht, später, das ist can man sagen, als the exercise is, akupun in the exercise, kedain sollen verstehen du, that thinking is a place. Is a place not in you. It's not a thing that you do.
It's something that
It's
overpowers
a thing that you.
you.
Go to.
The going is too much of an imagery that I don't want to
Okay.
do. It helps you, if it helps you understand, this is good, but it's a tzifil imagery. Thinking is a way of having truths, which are objects of
to you.
truths is the only thing
Come
that
over
can,
you.
be
Come
really objects
into
of
you.
thought. Exactly, overpower you, or you going again to describe it like up or down is under the shale, but it's not something of me. It's all thought starts when you're sitting in the binocular and watching Mount Everest, and you go there. That's where thought starts. That's what thinking means. Or knowing. Actively thinking. Actively knowing.
So we wrap this up.
Maar in Tzimmers, I get the Tzimmers, and then I schieß again, I get the...
Is this
Shem Lowy, Lowy, Lowy.
hoe is het dat aan een weide